Good morning, world history. Day is March 26, 2020. It is day 9 of digital learning. Hope you're doing well this morning. We're going to continue looking at Unit 4 and the Middle Ages. And today we're looking at 4.3, English and France in the Middle Ages. Just kind of as a review from where we were yesterday, we were talking about feudalism, which is the political and legal principle of government during this particular time. And if you remember, we had the king who would give the vassals or lords fiefs or land in exchange for loyalty and protection. And then the lords would have knights who would protect that land. And then we had the serfs who would work the land, who would till the land. So I just want to talk a little bit today about the economic side of feudalism, just as a reminder that, the Lord would provide the serfs with housing and farmland and protection, and in return, the serfs would tend the Lord's land. They would care for his animals. They would perform, other tasks that were needed to be able to maintain the estate. But life for this particular area wasn't that easy. It wasn't that great of a living, if you will. You basically would have about 15 to 30 families that were living on a particular manor. There was a church, there was a bakery, a mill, workshops. You would have streams that would provide fish. You had the mill, which was for grinding grain. And it was basically a self-sufficient community. You raised or produced nearly everything that you basically needed. However, if you were a serf living on that particular manor, you paid a high cost for living there. For instance, you had to pay a tax on the grain. Get this, if you were going to get married, you had to pay a tax on the marriage. And you could only get married if you had the consent of the Lord, of the person who owned the particular village. So if you really, really want to marry this guy or marry this girl, you didn't just get married. You had to go through a process, and you had to get the consent not of the girl's dad, but you had to get consent of the Lord. He had to give permission. And then if they gave permission, you had to pay money to actually get married. And then you also had to pay the priest. You had to give a church tax, if you will. They had houses that they could stay in, but these houses were full of dirt floors, and the way that they would warm their floors is they would bring their animals inside to keep the floors warm, and they would sleep on a pile of straw that was crawling with insects. So life really wasn't that great. The average life expectancy was about 35 years of age, and during their lifetime, basically, a peasant or a serf never traveled more than 25 miles from their home. So the furthest that they would ever go would be 25 miles, and that was it. So it was not a very good situation, but that's how society started. That's how society was developed during this particular time. Now, as we move forward, kind of away from the Germanic tribes, we start looking at England, which is something that we've kind of stayed away from. If you remember, we were talking about in France and Spain and Portugal and Italy and Rome. We had Vikings coming from the north. You had the Muslims coming from the south. You had the Magyars coming from the east. And basically, we need to look a little bit about what was going on with England. England itself was invaded by barbarians, if you will, from various regions, and one of those groups were the Vikings. And the Vikings basically were so feared that in churches every Sunday in England, they would basically be saying, God deliver us from the fury of the Vikings. And these were very scary individuals. However, there was an individual who was willing to kind of fight off the Vikings, who was able to be the defender of England during this time, and his name was Alfred the Great. Now, some people would say that Alfred the Great was the most perfect character in history, that he could do no wrong, that he was just a great individual who was good morally and with the way that he ran the kingdom. and that he comes in and he wants to liberate. He wants to bring about good news and good blessings to England during this time. It is pretty interesting that Alfred the Great actually kind of finds his way to be king through the death of four older brothers. It was very hard for him to become king, but his older brothers die. Nothing crazy about that. He didn't have any part in that. And basically, he finds himself kind of fallen into the kingdom. And, he says that that was a reason. It was like his destiny, that he had been called by God to kind of come in and to be this king. When people describe Alfred the Great, they describe him as a truth teller. He was brave, he was resourceful, he was generous to the church, he wanted to rule his people justly. Alfred the Great said these words. He said, "I desire to live worthily as long as I lived, and to leave after my life to the men who should come after me the memory of me in good works." And honestly, no other man did so much for his country than Alfred the Great. You see, it wasn't easy. It was very difficult. The war was going on constantly. There were constant battles with the Vikings. And not only was Alfred the Great a king, but he was also a warrior. He was the one who would lead the efforts. And there was one instance in which it was a very big battle, a great battle, and the English army had been defeated once again by the Vikings, and every man basically was for himself, and they just ran. They scattered about, and King Alfred was one of those guys also. And, the story goes that King Alfred is kind of alone. He's in the woods, in the swamp. He's lost. He's scared. He's hungry. He doesn't know what's happened. And so the king comes to this house where a woodcutter lived. And being tired, being hungry, he knocked on the door, and the woodcutter's wife came, and he said, could I please have something to eat? Could I just please have something to, a good place to sleep tonight? And the woman was baking some cakes, if you will, on the fire pit in the house, and she felt sorry for this poor ragged fellow who seemed so hungry. She had no idea that it was King Alfred, and so she said, "I tell you what I'm going to do. I will give you some supper if all you'll do is watch these cakes. I'm going to go out and milk the cow, get some milk, and I just need you to make sure that these cakes do not burn while I'm gone." King Alfred says, "I got this, no problem. Sure, I'll do that." And so he's watching the cakes, but as he's watching the cakes, you know what happens. His mind starts to drift. He fails to pay attention to the cakes. He's thinking, how will I get my army together again? How am I going to drive the Vikings out? How am I going to be successful? How can I demonstrate that I am the king and that I'm going to bring about, victory? And he forgot about his hunger. He forgot about the cakes. He forgot that he was in the woodcutter's house. He was so busy making plans for tomorrow that he forgot what was going on at that particular moment. Well, you know what happened. The woman comes back, and when she came back, the cakes were on the hearth and they were burnt to a crisp. And she was so angry. And she said, "You are so lazy. See what you have done? You wanted something to eat, but you did not want to work to get something to eat." She might even have hit him upside the head. We don't know, but the king was so hungry. And he was so upset that he had lost focus. And I think it's a message for you and I that we cannot focus on what's to come, but we need to focus on what we're doing today. We need to stay focused. We need to stay in the zone, if you will, making sure that we're doing all that we can today so that when tomorrow comes, we're prepared to face whatever is happening. However, he gets his act together. He brings the soldiers back. He unites the army, and they are basically able to defeat the Vikings. And you will see that what happens is he will call this place England, which means land of the Angles, or the group that comes back. Well, what was England like? Of course, we have his son Edward, who comes in and takes control. But when he dies, there is another struggle for the throne that will lead to one last invasion. This struggle is between an individual whose name is William the Conqueror of Normandy, and he will fight against Harold Godwinson, who claims the throne also. And this will lead to a really big battle that's known as the Battle of Hastings on October the 14th, 1066. And William the Conqueror will be successful. He will defeat the Harold's army, and he will entitle himself as William the First. Just something interesting about William: he is very, very popular, and he wins, of course, with this battle. And the name William, what does it mean? It basically comes from the French. Will means desire. Wilhelm, so the yum part of it means protection. So a desire to protect is kind of the name that was introduced to England, and that is what he comes about to do. By the 13th century, it's the most common name given to male children in England. And even today, of course, the name William is so popular. So England changes drastically. It changes permanently due to his conquest, because over the next few centuries, because of William and his efforts, you will start to see English kings wanting to add to their French lands while also holding on to their lands. They are also going to want to strengthen their power over the church. This is when you're going to start seeing them come in. William is also responsible for taking what's known as the first census in England. It's 2020 now in America, and we're taking a census is when you figure out, who's here, how many, of this group of people, how many of that group of people, how has our population grown? Well, William will unify England by taking this first census in England. He called it the Domesday Book. He also develops a system of taxation and also a court system. And so after we see William come in, we'll start to see these other individuals that are coming apart as far as in power, such as King Henry II. There will be this desire to expand the power of the king over the church, over peasants, over lords. The king wants to be in complete control, and that will start what's known as common law, something that will be very, very big in English society for many years. And common law would basically be laws that will be common to the whole kingdom, that will apply to not just one set of people, but will apply to all people that are living within the kingdom, wherever the kingdom might be. So we have a beginning of kind of how England will start to evolve. In the next lecture that I'm going to send you, I want to talk a little bit about one of the worst kings that England will ever experience and ever see. And that will ask the question, how does something good come out of something bad? The advice that we learn today from somebody such as Alfred the Great and also William the First, pay attention to today so that you can be prepared to face tomorrow. Have this desire to do all that you can with all that you have to be successful on this day, at this moment, in this place. Have a great day.